Assalamu alaikum, our dear students, and welcome to a new lesson for our school, Qatar Technical School. This is an English lesson for grade 10 using Technical English Book 1. The title of today's lesson is Electrical Circuit 2. Before we start the lesson, let's have a look at the objectives. Today we have two objectives. The first one is reading for details, and the second objective is studying if clauses, first conditionals. To be able to follow the lesson, please go to the course book and open pages 38 and 39. In the previous lesson, we had a look at this diagram, and we said that number 1 is a solar panel, number 2 is a controller, number 3 are cables, 4 lamps, and 5 controller. And we explained how the electricity moves from the panel to the controller and then to the batteries or the lamps. Now we have to do exercise 4 and look at this diagram and answer the question: where does the current flow in these three situations? We have three situations. Situation 1, the sun shines, which means that the solar panel is going to work and the lamps are on. Situation 2, the sun shines, which means also that the solar panel is working and the lamps are off. Situation 3, the sun doesn't shine, the lamps are on. In order to be able to answer these three questions about the three situations, we need to read this. Okay, before we start, let's look at the left. We have the word convert, and it means change. Exercise 5 is asking us to read the manual for the solar panel and check answers to 4. How does the solar power system work? The panel converts the sun's energy into a DC electric current. The current flows to the controller, then it can flow from the controller to the lamps, or it can flow from the controller into the battery. The battery stores the electricity. The current can flow from the battery into the lamps through the controller. If the sun shines, the DC current can flow from the panel through the controller and into the lamps. If the sun doesn't shine, the current can flow from the battery through the controller and into the lamps. If the lamps are off, the current can flow from the panel through the controller and into the battery. The controller controls the flow of the current. If the battery is full, the controller stops and the flow from the panel into the battery. If the battery is empty, the controller stops the flow from the battery into the lamps. Okay, now we have read the passage, which explains how the system works. I ask you please to pause the video, try to find answers to the three situations, and then come back to check the answers. Okay, now let's check the answers, and we will start by situation number 1. What happens? If the sun shines, the DC current can flow from the panel through the controller and into the lamps. Situation 2. If the lamps are off, the current can flow from the panel through the controller and into the battery. And finally, situation 3. If the sun doesn't shine, the current can flow from the battery through the controller and into the lamps. Okay, so after doing this exercise, we have achieved our objective for today's lesson, which was reading for details. We read the passage and answer 3 questions. Now let's move to the second objective, which is using the if clauses first conditional. As you see, we have the word plus, the symbol plus, which means positive, minus, which means negative, and the question. And we have two groups. Let's see what the first conditional means. If I study, I will pass my exams. If I study, if means لو. If I study, I will pass my exams. What about the negative? If I don't study, I won't pass my exams. If I don't study, I won't pass my exams. And how do we make the question? If I study, will I pass my exams? Here we notice that we used will before I. It's different from the first sentence, I will, but this is will I. Will I pass my exams? Now let's see the second group. If he studies, he will pass his exams. If he studies, he will pass his exams. We're talking about someone else. The negative, if he doesn't study, he won't pass his exams. And the question, if he studies, will he pass his exams? Now, what is the difference between the two groups? In the first group, we use the word study, the verb study, don't study, and study, and will as well. Okay? In the second group, we use studies, doesn't study, and studies. Why? Because in the second group, we're talking about someone else, and it's a singular person, he. So if we use he, she, or it, we add an s, ies, or ses, as we mentioned before when we talked about the present simple. Now let's look carefully at how we make the sentences. For example, if I study, I will pass my exams. I will pass my exams if I study. Here, there is a difference between using if in the beginning and in the middle. But we notice that we say if I study, and in the second sentence also if I study. I will pass my exams, I will pass my exams. Only the location of the phrases is different. Let's see how. We use present simple. Where is the present simple in the first sentence? Very good. I study. Where is it in the second sentence? The same. I study. But the location is different. What else do we use? We use the future simple. Where is the future simple in the first sentence? Excellent. Will pass. And where is it in the second sentence? The same, will pass, but the location is different. So when we use if first conditional, we use present simple and future simple. They don't change, but we change the location only, depending on where we use if, at the beginning or in the middle. Okay, so now we have achieved our second objective for today's lesson, which was the if clauses, first conditional, and I'm asking you please to visit the teams to check the homework. You have 24 hours to do the homework, don't forget. We wish you all the best. Goodbye.